Welcome back to The Truth with Trinity, and I am your host once again, Trinity. And if this is your first time tuning in to the podcast, thank you for joining. And on this podcast, I talk about issues that happen within the black community, hopefully to gain some resolution, advice, or food for thought. So I wanted to jump right into our topic of discussion, which is history is exciting in America until it's about black history. Um, so, my main part of discussion is going to be about the school systems that our children attend and maybe even in college. But even having a conversation, with someone that may be non black and most of the time, Caucasian. This is not a hate speech. This is just reality here. So, I've had conversations, with some white friends maybe, and or people I've known. I wouldn't say friends, but associates. And it's great to talk about the founding fathers, quote unquote, of this country: George Washington, Abraham Lincoln. We celebrate them, every year, several months within the year. But then it becomes boring, or I don't know if you've heard the term, oh, you want to bring up the past. Oh, you want to dwell on the past. Well, just a few minutes ago when we were talking about, English culture, all the way back from the 1100s, it wasn't boring then when we were talking about English history, but now that I'm bringing up my culture, it's all boring. It's dwelling in the past. So I wanted to bring up my first point, especially with our children and the school systems. Um, how they teach very little about our history as black people. Um, and then it's only about slavery. If you ever notice, they'll have a little small section, and it's always about a picture, of a person picking cotton, or it's referencing to slavery, or they'll pick the token icon, that they love to bring up, like Martin Luther King, so that's to say, hey, we brought up a little bit of your history, and that's about it, and it almost makes you, feel like that's all they want us to recognize within ourselves, and teaching our children that it's just slavery, not wanting to go back. And I feel like the reason why they don't like to teach about true black history, especially, before slavery, before we got over here, or some say we were already here, mixed with the, in with the Native Americans, because those are the true founders of this country. But I think they don't like to bring up the history of black people, because once you do, it sheds light, number one, that black people are resilient and brilliant, and they're not just cotton pickers, not just enslaved people. It goes into the empowerment of who we are today, but who we once were even more so. And I don't think they like to bring that up, because a lot of times they like to project us as inferior, not well spoken, never came up with any original inventions, when that's, quite the contrary, which I want to get into a little bit more, later on in the podcast. But I also think that it sheds light on a lot of their falsehood, that is portrayed in their books, you know. So, they don't like to talk about black history, because if you start talking about, the royalty, and, the inventions, the steam engine, the car engine, the air condition condensing, you name it, the crosswalk, the ironing board. I mean, you can go on, the open heart surgery, medicine, all sorts of things that, we've created, our ancestors, and, of course, they took the patent for it. So, a lot of times you see a white face for the founder, of a certain invention like the telephone and whatnot. And so they're easily able to dispute and say, hey, in my history book it says Alexander Graham Bell created this, when in actuality he stole that or got that idea from a black man. So that would definitely contradict what they're teaching, in society, especially in the school system. So of course they don't want to bring up, our history of our successes and inventions, because it would definitely, make it, to, be a lot of their things that they teach in their schools to be out a lie, basically. So, they definitely don't want to talk about ours. And I think, too, no one wants to look like the bad guy. A lot of bloodshed took place, and, no one wants to take responsibility for it. So, if they bring up the true history, that would also come out as well. And like I said, no one wants to look like the bad guy. So another thing is, what I would suggest is that, you know, and what I tell my child, the schools are European based, and so, you definitely can't expect for them to teach, something that they don't care to teach. But as a parent, that's not going to stop me from teaching my child at home, or if you have children, at home, the importance of our history. It gives a black child a sense of belonging and pride. There's nothing wrong with us having pride in ourselves, and sometimes it also it comes across as, when we talk about Black history and the pride of being Black, that's offensive to others. If there's no violent talk going on, I don't see the issue why, if I'm talking about the pride um, in my history and who I am today, why that would, be misconstrued as racism. And I've heard that a lot. I think that's like a gaslighter, to silence the voice of others who want to talk about their history and the pride of it. I mean, if Jews can talk about, the Holocaust and, how far they've came, if English and Europeans can talk about what they feel is considered prideful about their, history as Black people, we should not let anyone silence us, and especially in telling our children and ourselves the importance of who we are, and we need to study back beyond slavery, because, we existed far beyond slavery. And actually, we're the first humanoids of the earth. So, our lineage goes back to the beginning of time since humans existed. And another thing I teach my child is, they write the books, they write the test. So make sure that you answer what they need you to answer. So if they say 1 plus 1 is 4, even though we know it's not 4, it's 2, but I mean, I'm giving an example here, if they tell you a certain answer, especially in social studies, because that's where history usually is studied and, talked about, put down what they want you to put down so that you can get the grade and so that you can succeed in this society. But I also do my own history with my child, and I encourage, Black parents to do the same. Make sure that, you're teaching your child and that you study yourself so that you can educate your child to have pride, okay, and who they are and where they come from beyond slavery, okay? And definitely make sure you're doing that, because, like I said, it gives them a sense of pride. Because if you don't know who you are, anyone can tell you anything. And it's time for Black people, for someone not to be able to come across and say, hey, don't talk about your history. That's just boring. Or, don't talk about that. That's dwelling in the past. Well, it's not considered other people dwelling in the past when they take pride, and we have to celebrate Columbus Day and, all sorts of, George Washington and Abraham Lincoln and President's Day. It's not, considered dwelling in the past for them. So I don't consider it dwelling in the past for me as well, and neither should it be for you. Okay. Um, So I've pretty much went over, what I wanted to say about that. It's definitely a beautiful thing. Black history, shouldn't be just discussed one time of the month in the shortest month of the year, February, 28 days. Um, it definitely should be something amongst ourselves, within ourselves, that we take pride in. I think that's a big part of who we are. And like they say, if you don't know the history, you're bound to repeat it again. And I know we're definitely not trying to do that. So that pretty much wraps up this segment. It's been a pleasure talking with you all. If you have any questions or suggestions, you can always reach me at the truth with Trinity at gmail.com. Peace and blessings.